We are going to save a little bit of time at the very end for questions, but we won't have much, so do submit your questions via Whova, or all of our speakers will be available after the talk if you want to snag any of them afterward. First up, I'm pleased to introduce Dawn Kotuwage. She is the Director of Programs at ACTAsia. They deliver impactful education programs throughout Asia to help build a kinder and more sustainable world. Her presentation will be about the research that ACTAsia does to inform all of their programs and why they base their work on evidence. Join me in welcoming Dawn.
Meant to stand here, or should I walk around here? Can everyone hear me? Yeah, just about. Okay, thank you. First of all, just to say thank you for having me here today as a speaker. It's a real honor to be at the second Farm Animal Day in Asia. I missed the first one, but 20 and a few years ago when I started in animal protection, I didn't really dream that there would be a day or a conference like this just dedicated to farm animals. So just following on from the optimism in the opening ceremony from Jia Ying, days like this are really amazing to see, and that topics like research and evidence are becoming normal tools that we want to use in the movement to make ourselves more useful, to make more impact, and to make strides just like the industry does itself. So I'm hoping that I'll get through in 15 minutes. I've never been told that I'm very quiet and don't talk very much, but I'll try very hard to keep to the time. So ACTAsia is started in animal protection, but really positions itself as a One Health organization working for animals, people, and the environment. And we've done this to try and broaden our tent so that whatever decision we make, whatever program we do, we consider these three factors and try and get benefits for all of them in the projects. Our programs are award-winning at UN level, so we have children's education programs that are registered as good practice on good practice databases. We're a member of the UN Fashion and Lifestyle Network, and we're not doing this just to sort of say we're amazing, you know, it's not just to brag about, but we are one of the first organizations to bring fur farming to the UN to talk about it at a higher level political forum. And so by doing these things, we hope to get the issues that we're working on our programs recognized a bit more and hopefully some more action on those. ACTAsia was founded in 2006, and there was a big, ambitious vision. Ambition is a bit of a theme with ACTAsia, I have to say. We are a small team, but there was a big vision to make sustainable change, to make a more compassionate world. But how do you really do that? And ACTAsia chose education as its main tool to be able to make change. So we have three programs, main programs. First of all, our children's education program, which is a formal primary school curriculum for 6 to 12-year-olds, which is taught as part of the school year, as part of their academic courses, by teachers. This is not us going in and delivering it for them. And the aim of this is to get the curriculum adopted into the national curriculum in China and other countries that it's been implemented in, like Pakistan, so that it's available for every child. We also have consumer education programs, so the fur issue is one of our big ones that we work on. We want to see fur farming banned in China and globally. And we also have veterinary training projects so that we can bolster the animal protection movement and hopefully support veterinary progression in China and later on Asia. Thank you. Yeah. So we do have one more big program, but the second half of my presentation is all about ACTAsia's Compassionate Choices Network and Plant Forward, so I won't spend too much on there right now. But all of our education programs have research, evidence, and ultimately education as part of them. So here's a little example of how we plan our programs and design them. ACTAsia was founded in 2006 and actually started, the first job that Pei Su did was to work with the team to write a research report about China called Changing China. It's still on our website, so you can have a look at it. And that sort of paved the model for how we prepare and how we plan for our projects. So these reports include things like baseline data, status of animals, political structure, education, legislation system, and existing legislation. And we also look at what other people are doing, what other organizations are working on the issue in the areas, so that we don't dilute or duplicate, but we can complement and work together wherever possible. For the program, we always work with a strategy and theory of change, and we look for the science, whether it's veterinary science, animal science, human behavior change science, psychology of consumer shopping science. We look for it wherever we can find it, and we use the most up-to-date information available. The implementation of every project includes research studies and data collection. And Echo is here in the audience from ACTAsia, and for the last 3 years has done all of the data collection and overseen all of the data collection in China for our children's education project. And I'm sure she'll tell you, and I'm sure our speakers today will tell you, that research isn't a small undertaking. It's a big amount of work, but it's really valuable to the work that we're doing. And so evidence from this work can be academic papers that are published, peer-reviewed. It can be ACTAsia reports that we prepare ourselves, and manuscripts that we can use in articles and for the media and things. So here are some examples that we have. We've got two halves. The ones on this side near me are published, peer-reviewed academic papers for our children's education project. Now, I mentioned before, ACTAsia is small. We don't have Jiaying or Mission Motors, Good Growth, or any of the researchers here today working for ACTAsia. But wherever we can, we seek partnerships, meaningful partnerships with people who have the expertise. So for the Children's Education Project, we work with Dr. Bill Samuels from New York University, and he has been dedicated to this program since 2012 and has conducted annual analysis and published papers on the outcomes of the work that we do in China. And yeah, so don't worry if you can't do it, just look for somebody that can maybe partner with you and help. For the Children's Education Project, it's 600 children a year are involved. So like I said, it's not an easy thing to add to a project or to build into a project. You're asking teachers to, first of all, train and learn about the curriculum. You're asking them then to take time out of their packed academic curriculum. You're asking them then to do extra things, to do these questionnaires and collect data to then give to us on top of that. So from those 600 children, 300 will receive Caring for Life, and that's what we ask of them. But then we also need to find 300 children that are not receiving the Caring for Life curriculum. And for them, we have nothing to give them, but we're just grateful to share this. And then hopefully when they finish the research study, then we can start working with them. So on the other side, we've got the consumer education, the fur reports. We published Toxic Fur in 2018, the China fur trade in 2019, and then we've done biannual industry updates with 2022 and 2023 at the designers as we speak. Not quite ready for this, but it will be ready very soon to share with everyone. And lastly, just at the bottom there, we've got our One Health Implications of Fur Farming. That's the latest academic paper that we commissioned to be written, again, looking from an animals, people, and environment perspective for fur farming. So back to Compassionate Choices Network and Plant Forward. Plant Forward this year was our third year, and it ran in July. And it's really credit to probably many people in the room that are part of any of these organizations, including ACTAsia in China, It has grown hugely since we started, and we've got some really good results to show you in a really short video clip at the end. But really the point of Plant Forward is to get people in Asia thinking about a plant-forward lifestyle, thinking about what can they do in several different areas. And just back to the theory of change for our strategy and how we use this to plan our programs. Compassionate Choices Network has actually 4 key areas. We've started with food, but we actually also have sustainable fashion, cruelty-free living, and travel as pillars that in the future, that ambition we want to pick up as well. Ultimately, we want people to make individual changes. We want policy change, we want corporate change, but at the same time, people have to be ready to accept those changes and support those business decisions and policy changes later on. So we had to look at the science. And before we started this project in 2021, we actually did a human behavior change science course to make sure that we understood what it was that we needed to do. And I think the diagram just behind me where it shows the different places that people can be, and you can apply this to your own lives when you want to make a change. So yeah, just to talk about Plant Forward and the results, we had 93 corporate partners this year with 28 celebrities in China. We had 112 million impressions on social media with 747,000 active engagements. And we had 35 events in 8 different countries. So for our 3rd year, we have really grown. I think there's a figure like 13 times bigger than year 2. So we're really pleased with where this is going. But again, all credit to the CCN members. And then I think I've just got a video to play, if it's all back.
And combat climate change. Thank you to the 9 countries across Asia who joined to put the UN Sustainable Development Goals into positive action, a truly global partnership. Thank you to 93 corporate partners and 28 celebrities who lent us their voices. Thank you to the Compassionate Choices Network members who worked so hard to create and organise more than 35 events, including live webinars, bingo challenges, cooking demos and dairy-free challenges, as well as all the school events, potlucks, 10-day meal swap challenges and local community actions to benefit people, animals and the environment. But most of all, thank you to all of you right across the globe for making it such a success.
Our sustainable future is with plants.
Our sustainable future is with plants.
Thank you. And any questions later, or come and find me, or Echo, who's with me as well today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dawn. All right, next up we have Cara Wilcox. She's a PhD student who will be talking about the importance of science in animal welfare with a focus on broiler chicken welfare in Indonesia. Welcome, Cara.
Okay, it's working now. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you very much for having me here today. Thank you for AFAD for supporting me to be here and allowing me to talk, and for all of you guys coming to see me or hear me talk. Thank you very much. This room is a lot bigger than anywhere I've spoken before, so apologies for the nerves. Okay, my name's Cara Wilcox. I'm English, but I live in Indonesia. I've been there for about 9 years. And I'm currently doing my PhD research at the Universitas Padjadjaran in Bandung, Indonesia. And I'm doing it on, I'm doing it on broiler chicken welfare, husbandry and assessment in West Java, Indonesia. So today I'm going to be talking about the role of science in animal welfare and using my research as an example. So just a bit about what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to describe what it is to do applied animal welfare research and go across a few tools and a few of the things that we need to do this kind of research. Okay, so I thought I would start this presentation how we would start a science project. I know there's people from all different fields here. Some of you might be way more sciencey than me, and some of you might be not done science since you were at school. So I hope this is somewhere in the middle. But normally we would start a science project with looking at what our aim is or looking at what our research question is. So I was thinking, what is the aim of our movement? What are we even doing here? What is the point of this? That's where I started. And I looked on the AFAD website, and it says, working to protect the farm animals of the region. And I think we would all agree that that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to protect them. That's a great sentence. But I was thinking about it a bit more, and I was thinking, what are we protecting them from? What are we doing? Protecting them from what? And there's a lot of different things that could be, from mistreatment, neglect, harm, being force-bred or force-fed, being eaten, being confined, in pain, or are we trying to end farming altogether? And I think it's probably different for all of us. And for me, I would like to end all animal farming. And probably many of you do here as well. But I think we're a long way from that at the moment. So we have to be a bit more specific, work on specific issues. And I was thinking about this, and I think in my work, I am trying to work on ending pain, harm, and neglect. I think that's what I'm focused on at the moment. So yeah, I think it helps us to think about these things to focus our work a little bit. Okay, so the story about my research project started with this, or not this one particularly, but these trucks of chickens that you see everywhere on the motorways or the Jalan Tol in Indonesia. You see them, they're crammed full of chickens on the way to their slaughterhouses. And I first saw these back in 2015 when I was first in Indonesia. And I wasn't working on this at the time, I was working on something else, but it really struck me. These animals look like they're in a really bad condition. I just felt really bad for them. Their welfare wasn't good, and it just looked like no one cared about them. And so at that time, I thought, I really have to do something about this. And I was thinking about it for a long time. And I'm not involved in animal farming, and I don't eat chickens, but I just really cared about these animals that are in this truck. So I decided to find out what the chickens need by doing some research. So it took me about 6 years to get going, but then I started this research project with UNPAD. So my aims for this research project, well, my main aim is to understand the issues regarding broiler chicken welfare in Indonesia so that we can find solutions. If we don't know what the problem is, how can we help them? And along the way, I came across a few other aims because when I started researching about this topic, there wasn't really any information. There hasn't been any animal welfare research on broiler farms in Indonesia, or there hadn't at that time. So I wanted to try and increase national research capacity and awareness and begin building blocks of research. I can't do it all, there's a massive project, massive issue, but step by step we can build little bits of information which can help us develop a plan or help the chickens in some way. And again, yeah, I wanted to build awareness for the universities and also for the industry. I wanted them to know that we're serious about animal welfare, and they have to be too. They're going to have to learn about animal welfare and start working on it. And you might think, hasn't this already all been done? We've got things like the BCC. We've already got a lot of knowledge about what chickens need and want, but most of that research is in Europe or the US or the UK. And it's not always applicable to bring to other countries, for example, in Asia, as Jeff was saying in his talk earlier. Things that are different include the economic structure, climate, culture, the farming systems, and also the starting points. They have different regulations, different laws regarding farming practices. So I thought to myself, what would the BCC or something like that look like in Indonesia? So I came up with this problem statement, which is broiler chicken welfare and husbandry on large commercial farms in Indonesia have not been investigated. Therefore, current practices cannot be systematically improved upon. We have to work step by step to improve things. Unfortunately, we can't change it all overnight. So my wide-arching hypothesis for this is that animal husbandry and management affect chicken welfare. How the farmers treat their animals, how they manage their farms. They've got good practices and bad practices, which have good and bad outcomes for the chickens. And I wanted to know what are the good practices and the bad practices so that we can encourage the good and get rid of the bad. So that's the idea. So how are we going to do this? So we have to use animal welfare indicators. And there's a whole range of these, things like animal-based indicators, which is like animal health and animal behavior. Resource-based, which provides potential for animal welfare, for example, how much space the animals are given or what kind of environment they're given. And there's also technology we can use to look at these. And ideally, we want to use a mixture of these three things. When are we going to do it? So with broiler chickens, we usually look at them when they're above 26 days old, because that's when the welfare issues are most prominent, so we can see them. Where are we going to look? So there's all these different stages in the broiler chicken farming industry. There's the broiler breeders, a hatchery, day-old chick selection, transport to farms, growing, transport to slaughter. And of course, in the beginning, I was looking at the transport to slaughter aspect. But for this research, I decided to look at the growing phase because that affects the most animals for the longest period of their lives. So that's what I've focused on this research. So all of these things are applicable to other animal species in other situations. I'm just using my research as an example, but you can apply it to other situations. So some animal-based measures, as I mentioned before, we want to look at validated measures or validated indicators of animal welfare. So I'm going to explain what that means. So something that we look at on broiler chicken farms is foot-pad dermatitis. And there's a scoring system we can use. And so you see here the score is 0. Some previous researchers have already shown that chickens with a foot-pad score of 0, which is nice and clean, those chickens have better welfare generally. And the chickens with a foot-pad score of 4, for example, they have worse welfare. So that's an indicator. We're not looking at the specific causes of the foot-pad dermatitis here. We're not looking at the specific bacteria causing it, but we can use this as an indicator of how the animal's welfare is. So there's lots of other things like this, like hock burns is a similar thing, breast blisters for chickens, cleanliness, thermoregulation, animal behavior in some instances can be used. And there's a lot of resources for all of these animal welfare indicators, and they differ for different species, as I said, and for different situations. So chickens on broiler farms will be different indicators from chickens on layer farms, for example. Like fish is going to be different, cows are going to be different, and so on and so on. There's a lot of these indicators available, you just have to work out what it is for your species or your situation. So some resource-based measures. These are things like temperature, humidity, light intensity, air quality, including ammonia, carbon dioxide. You can do a litter score to look how clean and dry the litter is, how deep the litter is. Look at how fast the wind is going. They have blowers in the chicken house. How many blowers are on, circulating the air, sorry. The stocking density. There's a whole range of things like this that you can do. So this is what I've been doing on chicken farms in the past year. I've been collecting data using resource-based measures and animal welfare measures and talking to the farmers. And my research is still ongoing. I haven't completed my data analysis yet, so I can't share with you the exact findings, but I'm going to share with you a little bit about what I've found in this process. I found that the litter use and the way the farmers manage the litter and the depth and the quality of the litter really, really affects the chicken welfare. Chicken leg health problems is a really key issue in broiler farming, and the litter really impacts that. So farmers need to be aware of the connection between the litter and the chicken health. The lighting schedules. A lot of farms in Indonesia use 24-hour lights on systems, which means the chickens don't get any dark period, which is pretty awful for stress and immune systems and also just general welfare. You need a good rest. Even if it's just for a couple of hours a night, if they turned out the lights, it would be economically beneficial for the farmers and it would be good for the chickens. So that's one thing that we need to address. Culling and euthanasia on farms is not really practiced. That is culling animals that are sick or injured. They're often not killed in a humane way, and that's really important to reduce the amount of suffering on these farms. Hygiene and biosecurity also really needs to be worked on to reduce disease, both animals and humans in these situations. And some of these were surprising for me, so I'm really glad that I've done the research so I know what the main issues are. I didn't expect to see the thing about culling. I wasn't expecting to find that, and I didn't know that they didn't turn out the lights on these farms, because in other countries, you have to. So I'm really glad that I did the research to know what the solutions might be. And watch this space. I'm going to be publishing in-depth research next year. So yeah, it will be freely available when it's written. Okay, so now we've got a better idea of what the BCC Indonesia might look like if we were to make one. So some potential benefits of this research include understanding the situation to be able to find detailed recommendations. We can present specific tools. For example, another aspect of my research is looking at using an infrared camera as a welfare assessment tool. So that's something we can do using animal welfare research. And also, we need to work with and assist the farmers to improve. A lot of them are really interested to learn about what we're doing, and they want to make their lives better for the chickens, and it can also help the farmers. And the main aim, of course, is to reduce animal suffering. But if we can improve the consistency or the farming systems, the efficiency on the farmers will be economically benefited. They will benefit, and they might also begin to care about animal welfare, which is a first step towards making change. So some of the tools we need to do animal welfare research include the validated indicators, as I mentioned before, finding appropriate ways to collect the information. So there's some tools like these apps, this iWatch Broiler app, which you can use to collect information that makes animal welfare assessment easier, and the farmers could use it themselves, but we need more of these and more specific applications to be able to use. We also need to understand what we're doing. We need to be able to interpret the information that we get, and we need to use that to make appropriate recommendations which suit the situation. And science creates knowledge, and knowledge is power. So the more knowledge we have, the more powerful we are as a movement. So this is me on the farm. So what we can use this scientific basis for is maintaining the integrity of our movement. We can use it to lobby the governments and the industry, to make detailed recommendations, work together with other stakeholders, and improve animal lives. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip over that one. And coming back to the first thought, we need to keep animals central. Is our work protecting animals? Are we doing what we are planning to do, and is it working? We can look at that in a scientific way. So some important take-home messages are: don't assume, you can check the information. Take time for the thought process. Don't rush things, it needs to take a process. Be proactive in looking for answers. Science doesn't have to result in peer-reviewed journals, but it's important that we gain meaningful and useful information that help us do our job. So this is just some final tools. So some research tools like the welfare quality assessments. There's already protocols out there which we can use, so we don't have to start from scratch. There's the Soil Association, Red Chapter, and so on. There's a lot of other assessment tools that we can use, funding opportunities, and learning about animal welfare science. There's online and offline courses, and I encourage anyone to learn about this because we need more people in Asia doing animal welfare science. So I encourage you all to do it. And thank you everyone for listening to me. These are my motivation and support. And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Cara. We can't wait to see your final paper. Last but not least is Gülbike Mirzaoglu. She is the co-founder of Animetrics, and their mission is to expand evidence-based animal advocacy research with a specialization in economics and econometrics. Her presentation is about the power of experiments and the crucial role of empirical evidence in the animal rights movement. Welcome.
Thank you so much. So, okay, this works like this. Perfect. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, spending your valuable time here. It's very honoring for me to be in front of so many inspiring advocates. And I hope my work will be useful for you, for your efforts. So, very briefly about me, my name is Gülbike. I'm co-founder of Animatrix, which I will discuss in a second. I did my PhD in economics, and apart from this, I'm really happy to work with Middle East Vegan Society, where I give lectures and talks on animal rights, environmental issues, and veganism. And I'm also a part-time competent assessor for software projects. So, okay, if you haven't heard about us, Animatrix has been recently launched research and capacity building organization. We advanced the movement with economics and econometrics. Here is my co-founder, Sueda. She couldn't make it today. But together, we use methods in experiments, policy evaluations, and cause and effect relationships. We provide free of charge support for organizations, and also we prioritize neglected regions, like global southern countries. So if you want to check it out, you can check our website. So the topic of my talk is very related with the reason we are here. So I assume we all work hard to make this world a better place. And we know, unfortunately, the suffering of animals is huge. It's so big that our minds cannot comprehend. And with that, we have very limited resources, limited amount of people, our funding, we are having burnouts, and everything seems very limited. And with these limited resources, we want to understand which interventions are effective, which ones we need to put more funding on. We want to persuade the public, we want to inform policymakers. But how we can be sure that we are truly creating change? So conventionally or commonly, we focus on inputs and immediate outputs in our efforts. These are easy to measure indicators, such as number of people who attended our workshops or number of leaflets distributed, the amount of money we spend on a campaign or anecdotes, which are great, but they only provide very limited information. So what about other approaches that we can know that we are really creating a change? So for that, I want you to imagine a very simple scenario. Imagine that right now we are all running a campaign in an elementary school, and we are teaching kids about animal rights or welfare. And what we want to do is, we want to understand its effect, and we want the kids to go to plant-based. So, idea number one, why don't we just compare before and after our campaign? So imagine that before the campaign, we just get the students, and then we ask them how much plant-based they consume, and we learned they are 80% of them plant-based. And after that, we give them education. And after that, we measure them again. And we see there is no change. So does it mean it was not effective? At the first step, it seems like that. But there could be many alternative explanations that could go in line with that. So imagine just one scenario, that the price of vegan products have increased. It could be the case. If you cannot see, but it could be the case that price of vegan products were $3 before we do the campaign, and maybe after that it went to $8. So normally, what we would expect is that when the price goes up, demand would go down, so people would consume less plant-based. But we see it was same. So that means we were effective, but we cannot get the change only doing before and after measurements. So before and after measurements doesn't work. So imagine a different scenario. Why don't we compare those who received with another group? So imagine we just get two groups, one of them we just give the education, another one doesn't get education. And we just want to compare those two. And then we see the ones that didn't get education are more plant-based than our group. So does it mean we were harmful? Like we were making them like a bad effect? But there could be other explanations that goes in line with this as well. It can be the case that the students are very different. Like the ones who got the education could come from meat-based culture. It's just an example. And then other group could maybe come from plant-based culture. So, doesn't mean we were not effective. We are just comparing apples and oranges here. So these two groups are not comparable. So, to find the true impact of our campaign, we need to know cause and effect relationship. And for that, we need to know the counterfactual. This fancy word means that what would have happened for the same students if they didn't participate in the workshop? So for that, ideally, we need to clone the students. So only with that, for the one group, we will give education, and for the other group, we don't give education, which will be the same students, so there will be exactly clones, so that now we can know the effect of our campaign. But cloning can be pretty hard, it can be expensive, and it might not be that ethical. So that's why we need to find the valid comparison group if we want to find the effect of our work. That means we need to find a group that would receive the workshop that will be very similar, except they don't get the workshop. So impact evaluators came with a wonderful idea, which they call it a gold standard, which is called randomization. So idea is like following. We have an amount of students here, and then we randomly assign those people to different groups. That is, imagine that I just roll a dice, and if it's even, you go to this group, and if it's odd, you go to different groups. So it's completely random. Then, the idea is again, if this group is large enough, statistically speaking, they will be very similar. That means their average age, their average plant-based attitudes, their average education will be very similar. It will mimic as if we clone the students. So only with that, we will give education to one and not to other group, then we can really compare. Then we can really find the effect of our campaign. So this is just an example. And I want to just give you a case study because I like to visualize it. We can use this randomization with interventions, but also we can use it with different questions as well. So I want to give the question that we are after in animatrix. So we want to understand the effect of, actually we are studying on the naming bans for plant-based products. So you know, as you might know, that there's like a bans around the world that is like they are banning the names like cheese and meat. And the claim is that these terms confuse consumers. But there is no evidence for that. And alternatively, there are new names like cashew block, white block, plant-based slices, and these can even confuse more. And now there's like a vegan labels which might reduce confusion, but there's no evidence for that as well. And the question is, do naming and labeling affect consumers' confusion on plant-based cheese? And for that, we are focusing on Turkey, where there's strict regulations on plant-based cheese. So for that, we are like making different visuals, where we are showing different, like how to say, same visuals but different names, and then we are seeing the effect of like one of these visuals. And for that, we are doing an online experiment, where we are randomly assigning participants in different groups. Only with this, if you are randomly assigning, then we can really find the effect. So what I want to say is that evidence-based decision-making is very important. And impact evaluations are just part of it. There are some complementary approaches like monitoring, mixed methods, and process evaluations. And also like there are different methods for impact evaluations as well. But they're not always feasible. Like there can be costly technical expertise needed or ethical concerns. And poor impact evaluations can lead to big mistakes. That's the problem. So if you do poorly, they can waste our resources, they can cut funding for effective programs. And also, acknowledging our limitations is very important. So if you cannot claim causality, never claim causality. So if you cannot make a, like, how to say, impact evaluation, and if you cannot make a true impact evaluation, we shouldn't say that our workshop reduces students' meat consumption by 20%, for example, or our program decreased animal suffering by 10%, because for that, we need to make an impact evaluation. And this is very important for persuasion, it's very important for accountability, for transparency, for credibility. So, thank you, this was all. I hope it was useful for you, but what I want to say is that I don't want to make people scared about research, or I don't want to make people scared about like how to do on their own. Like, if you cannot do it, it's perfectly fine. But first, we need to know that whether we need impact evaluation, and second, we need to know that we have people who can help us with. So, I think we need to put more effort on that. We need to know the know-hows, and there are also other organizations or people who can be helpful for your efforts. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone, reminder to submit questions via the Whova app. I'm going to jump in with a two-part question for our speakers. With so much information out there, how does one know what is reliable and what is not? Is this something that can be included in education as well?
Me? What's reliable? I think the information is out there. We need to see the source of it. Is it published or not? Is it peer-reviewed or not? Who is published that? Is there like conflict of interest with the publishers, with the journal itself or the question itself? We need to know where does the funding come from. We need to know the methodologies of the study. We need to know how many sample size have been used. For example, there are like studies that say eating eggs increases health by some %. And when you look at the study, you see that comparison group could be eating chips. So like, we need to know how the evidence is valid and the methodology is valid or not. Authors, that they have like a credible, are they credible, and is it transparent? Do they publish their data or not? And also, is it open access? If you ask the data, would they able to provide it or not? So, I think these are important factors.
Hello. Yeah, just to add a little bit to that, I think it's a really good question because it's really important to be critical of what we're reading. So it's good to read things and think, is this true or not, or is it real or not? And also, if something is a really good finding, it's likely that either someone else or other people have already or are going to do similar things to back it up. So if lots of people are saying the same thing and they're credible, as Gülbike said, then it's more likely to be true. But if it's only just one person saying it out of a whole bunch of people saying other things, then it's less likely to be true.
I don't really have much to add other than be skeptical. If it sounds, that it's either too good to be true or it's terrible, it's probably from an industry that wants to continue fur farming or intensive farming of animals, something like that. So be skeptical and check.
Thank you. All right, next question. Is a specific degree required to join animal welfare organizations or advocate for them? If not, opening the next page. If not, what kind of degree should a student pursue to enter the field? What skills are essential to succeed in such organizations? And what steps should one take to get involved? Big question there. Anyone want to tackle it?
Well, when I started, I did one of the very first animal welfare science degrees in the UK, and no one had ever heard of it. So when I tried to get a job, everyone was like, what is that? So now it's more popular, and there are lots of different specialisms, not just of animal welfare, but which kind of welfare, what are you most interested in? But I think if you want to work for animal protection, it's not limited to just animal welfare science. There's lots of different qualifications, transferable skills that you can use from all different industries that the animal movement need. So communications, I know that's a different talk today, but we need not just, I was going to say technophobes, but not just people like me who want to do animal welfare and want to try and do comms, but we need experts in every different part of running the organisation. So, yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, similarly, I think it doesn't really matter that much what degree you do, but some things I think are important are your passion for what you're doing and your opportunities. So you have to be passionate about whatever it is you're working on. So if that is media, then there's ways you can help animals within media, or if that is, law, similarly, you can use that. It's important to do something that you enjoy, and then it won't be too hard, I think.
I don't have anything else to add, but there are like, if you really want to be effective as well, there are some areas that are more neglected in the movement as well. There are like, we need more research on. Maybe you can also check the research questions that will be interesting for you, and whether you see whether it's addressed or not, and what kind of degree also depends on your interest, but also, for example, if I just talk about my background, but what I see is that there is no economist in the movement. So we need much more economists. And I remember like when we talked with Joe before, we were talking that maybe there are 5 or 6 economists with PhDs in whole movement. So like it could be more or it could be less, but it's such a needed discipline, at least. What I know is that. If you don't like, don't do, but if you like, that would be also like a good field.
Agree with everything that's been said up here. All right, if we want to conduct research, what organizations can help advise us?
Definitely there is Phonalytics.
Get in touch, phonalytics.org.
Yeah.
And there's also Animetrics.
Yeah, thank you. So Animetrics is there for you as well. Animal Ask, Rating Priorities, Open Philanthropy, and Bryant Research. And also like research departments of some bigger organizations like Mercy for Animals, ACE. I'm sorry if I'm forgetting the others, but there are many people out there who are doing amazing work.
I just add universities are also a great place to start with research, depending on if you're an individual or an organization.
I think just good growth. That was the only one that I think,
And there's also a community called Hive, the Hive Animal Advocacy Community. I think it's joinhive.org, and they have a Slack channel that has a researcher-specific channel. So if you go to Hive, joinhive.org, you can get in touch with the research community there. All right, next question. You mentioned about AI indicators and also the use of AI in animal welfare. Can you reflect more on that aspect?
So AI can be used. I don't remember if I mentioned it in this talk, but there are ways that AI is used in farming, for example, with tools that can be put on farms and then they send messages directly to the farmer, or they automate processes within the farm. They can be beneficial and they can not be beneficial as well, depending on how they're used and how much farmers rely on them as well, and how much they understand the technology. I have heard of stories of AI technologies going really wrong, and I've heard of good stories as well. So it's really important to know what the technology is, make sure it's tested properly, and make sure that that kind of technology, if it's used on farms, on animals, is built with the animals in mind and not with the farmers in mind, and built for the right reasons and not just to increase production, as many of them are.
All right, if you were to select a different area other than your current one within animal welfare to conduct effective and impactful research, what would you want to look into? If you were to select a different area other than your current one within animal welfare to conduct effective and impactful research, which one would you want to look into? If, essentially, if you weren't studying what you are studying.
I just add universities are also a great place to start with research, depending on if you're an individual or an organization. For me, I think it would probably be something similar, but maybe on fish or shrimp welfare, which is a really exciting new area. But if it didn't have to be farm animals, then probably into more positive animal welfare and looking at improving the lives of animals in a good way, not just reducing negative aspects. That's me.
It's a hard question. Yeah, I think within the economics field, macroeconomics is much needed right now. So I wouldn't like to do a PhD in macroeconomics, but ideally that would be great for the movement itself. And if I didn't do economics, I don't know, like maybe psychology could be one of the options, I would say.
This is a hard question. I think I'm not a researcher, so I would look for a partner who could research about alternative proteins and investments in Asia. I know that they have it in other parts of the world, and there's an example in the fashion industry called Material Innovation Institute, and they've done it for alternative materials to fur. And it's been fascinating seeing the growth of the alternatives coming out for materials to use for fashion. And I think that we could do with something like that for Asia specifically. So I'd look for somebody to do that with.
And I think we have time for one more question. How do we build a movement in Asia amongst animal welfare researchers and scientists to bring more awareness and science-based campaigning on this?
We just need loads and loads more people to do on-farm animal welfare research, in my opinion. The issues are so wide, there's so many things that need to be investigated, so many issues. I think we just need loads and loads of work on that. And then it can inform campaigns and inform lobbying and industry and everything like that. It's just going to be a lot of work, in my opinion. I can't see any shortcuts, really. Anyone else? Not the happiest answer, but if you enjoy spending time with animals, farms are full of animals, so you know that's one point.
For building the movement itself is a hard question, but like we need a more network structure, and we need more support for smaller groups where they know how to collaborate with bigger groups, and we need to be more, I think, in line with our strategies. If you want to be a movement, we need to know who is doing what and where, and we need to know the data, like what we need the most. And that's one of the things I think we need globally itself as well, where like we need to know the map. Like we need to get our facts together. Okay, this is that amount of animal, and this is what's possible for this time period, and what's needed the most. And I feel like we need to more synchronize with our efforts, and have a more global agenda next to the regional one. Yeah.
Not much to add to that, but I think events like this and networking and talking and being open about what went well and what went wrong and how to avoid those pitfalls, I think that's all a really good starting point.
Well said. Let's give one more round of applause to our amazing speakers. Thank you, everybody. I think the next talk starts in about 10 minutes.